In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this sketch profile with these dimensions, this fully defined model using Fusion 360. So I'll keep this open while I'm making the exact same model over here. First of all, in Fusion 360 here, I need to create a new drawing, and I'm making this in a folder which I've already created called LED Strip Light. So with this design here, what I'm going to do is save it straight away before I begin. Notice it's in the LED Strip Light folder, and I'm going to call this example LED. Okay. So first thing I want to do is start a new sketch. So let's come to create new sketch, and I want to make that onto this top work plane here. Notice that we've got all the work planes located here. So this is going to be my top face. Here's my origin. All these dimensions are in millimeters, so I want to zoom in here, and as I zoom in I get the grid becoming more detailed. I'm going to be working from the origin, and I'm going to be drawing this inner profile of this shape. So let's just come to the line tool here. I'm going to click, I'm going to come up here 9 millimeters as indicated in my construction diagram here. Okay, then I'm going to come across. Now I'm going to actually change my model slightly here. In my model here you can see I'm defining the angle of this by 3 millimeters up and 3 millimeters along. Here I'm actually going to define this instead by 45 degrees. In fact, no, that's not going to work, is it? Let's go with 135 degrees. Okay, that's looking good, and I'm actually going to have that looking going much further than the probably kind of like 4.5 millimeters that I can see in my drawing to the side there. So I'm not going to worry about the length of that just yet. Okay, now I'm going to have a vertical line which is going to be 3 millimeters further up. So actually at this point in time, let's have a see. This is going to be slightly more complicated using the angle. I'm going to use a line tool. I'm going to make it construction. I'm going to draw a line tool straight across here. Let's just right click to finish that drawing and OK. And now I need to get some dimension lines. So I'm going to press D for dimension line, and I'm going to click and click a second time to create a dimension line there, which is going to be 3 millimeters. Now while I've got the dimension line as well, let's also just dial in there that that's going to be 9 millimeters. So I'm starting to get the details that I want. If I zoom in here a little bit more, yep, that's looking quite nice. Okay, so I'm not very happy with the fact that that entire line is kind of highlighted there with a dimension line. That seems a bit strange. Can you see how that kind of highlights the whole thing? So if I delete that and delete and get rid of it, can I actually define it like there? Okay, let's just try that again. D for dimension line from that point to that point. I'm preferring that. That was much better. So I actually went from point to point rather than the whole line to this point. And now I can see that's an actual construction line because it's dotted. Okay, now let's get another line in here. I'm going to do this vertical line that I can see over here. So let's come to the line tool again, and actually that's just snapping at that point right there. Now that happens to be on the grid, which is making my life easy, but just to show you a different way of doing this, because I want to snap onto the end of this diagonal line, what I'm going to do is escape that tool, the escape key on the keyboard. I'm going to come to the trim tool, and I'm actually going to trim that line back, and now I've got an intersection at that point, and I'm going to trim that line back as well there. And now if I come to my line tool, it will actually snap to that point, which actually is much better. Now it's still construction. Let's turn construction off there. This is going to go vertically straight up another 3 millimeters. Well, I'll pull that back down to 3, right click, and OK there. So that's looking nice. Okay, I need to draw a line along the bottom here. Now I'm actually going to mirror the whole thing. I'm only going to draw this left hand side. This full width here is 9 millimeters, so I only need to make it 4.5 millimeters, and then I'll mirror it to make the 9. Let's make a line tool again here. Let's take it this in here, 4.5 millimeters. Now that's off the grid. So what I'll do is I'll dial in 5 for the time being. Notice I can also go to the tick box there, or I can also press the escape key on the keyboard to finalize that. Let's get the D tool for dimension. Let's bring a dimension line in here, and let's put that to 4.5. Okay, so that's basically got my basic shape in place. Let's now do a mirror of this. I've got the dimension line tool, so I'll press escape to get rid of that. I'm going to select, Shift select, Shift select, Shift select. Let's come to Sketch. Let's come to Mirror. Now it's wanting me to actually define a mirror line, and I can't do this yet because I've not got a line of symmetry. So I'll need to cancel that for a second. L tool is another shortcut for line. Construction line, it's snapping to that point at the end of the line there. I'll go straight up there and I'll just secure that in place. Okay, so that's my that's my line of symmetry around the center of the drawing, which you can also see identified on the sketch here as well. Okay, so let's now just escape that line tool. Now I'm going to go back to selecting, Shift select, Shift select, Shift select, go to the sketch menu, let's go mirror, line of symmetry is going to be right here, and confirm, and that's created the full profile. But now I need to think about the actual wall thickness here. So what I'm going to do at this point is let's do an offset. Okay, now this time I'm not selecting my lines in advance. I'll select them once I've got the offset tool working. So I'm going to select that line, there, and there we go. So it's now identified exactly what I want. 1mm offset is what I want to have for the wall thickness. Confirm this. Notice that I still had it in construction lines. So actually I could just multiple select these lines and get rid of the construction option. Instead I'll simply undo it. I'll go back to my offset. I'll do the same process again. Keep going until it works out what you want. Turn off the construction, and voila, there's my drawing. Now let's notice at the moment that this is not filled, it's just an outline. I want it to be filled like this because that shows Fusion 360 that this actually is a closed profile and I can do something with it like an extrusion. So let's just click and click with the line tool, click and click with the line tool, right click on OK or escape to finish, and that basically is my profile. I'm ready to go. What I want to do is just show you one or two other features here. Notice that this is fully defined. Apart from these two little blue lines at the top, they are not defined, fully constrained. They're not fully constrained. And what that means is that I could theoretically select, if I zoom in here, I can select that line, and I could now theoretically move this line around by dragging it like that, or I could press the M key, which now means that I have these little arrows that allow me to effectively move this around in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. Not quite sure what's happening there. Okay, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to undo it back to where I was. But no, I'll leave it like this. What's missing here basically is this dimension line here. Now notice that I'm going from this internal edge here to the top, not from the external edge. So let's just zoom out a little bit here, press D for dimension line, and I want to just define that let's see the distance. Let's see, am I going to have to record that distance? Let's have a look. Record that to 3. Yeah, and there you go. What that has now done, press the escape key, is it's made that black line there, sorry, the blue line should I say, turn black, and that shows that the drawing is now fully defined. And if I click on this and click on the M key to try and move it and move that around, notice it's not moving. I mean, this move tool is moving around, but the actual line isn't, so I'll cancel that. Voila! I'm not quite convinced by that line there, so I think what I'm going to do is just drag that and take it out the other side. I think it's going to look a lot more attractive if I just do that, and I might just bring that in a little bit, just kind of clean up the image a bit so it's a little more tidy. Okay, do I line those up there? Why not? Okay, so that's now ready for extrusion, which I'm going to do super fast. Let's just stop the sketch there. Let's go into the 3D view. There it is, that's on my top plane, and I'm now going to simply go to the extrude option. I'm going to select the profile I want to extrude, and then I can extrude that up to whatever height I want it to be, and confirm. I will just actually mention two more things. On the bottom here you've got the history of all the things you've done. If I wanted to change that extrusion that I've just created, I can right click on that extrusion feature, edit the feature, and now I can modify the height that I extrude it to. If I want to edit the sketch that creates this object, then I can either right click and edit the sketch here, or I can right click and edit the sketch here, and what that will let me do then, if I wanted to, because it's parametric modeling, I could change that value, for example, to 6mm. If I stop the sketch, it will then update the extruded model to include that modified 6mm distance. Okay, there we go.